Hey everyone, now we're looking at 10E. Science Standard 10E, recognize the basic principles of genetics and heredity. Share my screen. So that was 10E, recognize the basic principles of genetics and heredity. Their concepts are cause and effect, organisms, and variation. You need to know the principles of genetics and heredity. You need to know what stays the same and what changes. You need to know what is carried through to offspring, and you need to know more about the genes in DNA. The skills are to recognize the principles of genetics and heredity. Your targeted cognitive process is to recognize steps you need to take so that you're successful with this standard. That you need to research the basic principles of genetics and heredity. You need to research genes. You need to research the common aspects that are carried on to the offspring. You need to refamiliarize yourself with Mendel's principles of heredity. And you need to know all you can about the principles of genetics and heredity to be successful with this standard. So let's look at a few of our resources here. Okay. This resource looks at Mendel's principles of inheritance. This is inherited traits that are passed down from generations. This was discovered by Mendel. So he followed the 7 traits, the inheritance of 7 traits in pea plants. The shape, the color, the flower position, plant height, and pod shape and pod color. He began with pure bleeding pea plants to see how they would produce. Principles of inheritance are a fundamental theory of heredity. So he found that these traits were either dominant or recessive. Dominant traits were always seen in the progeny, whereas recessive traits were hidden until the first generation hybrid plants were left to self-pollinate. We did many trials with this experiment, and this shows you a little bit about it. He has the principle of segregation, the principle of independent assortment, and then he has exceptions to his rule. And then the other one is genetic inheritance. And this talks about Mendel again, tells a little more about his experiments, his conclusions. He has a law of segregation, and he has a law of independent assortment. You have alleles, genotype, and phenotypes. So you need to look at all of these things. You have your Punnett square. So you need to look back over this and refamiliarize yourself with these aspects of the standard that you've already learned, I'm sure, through school. And then you'll be successful with 10E, recognize the basic principles of genetics and heredity.